Johnny Talk Sports in with my Week 15 NFL predictions, and it is a fight to the finish for a playoff spot. With only 4 weeks left in the regular season, right now, over 2/3 of the NFL is within 1 game of a playoff spot. So it is going to be a fight to the very end. And last week I went 12-2 in my predictions. So hopefully I can have another strong week for Week 15. And for the first time this season, we are having some Saturday games. So that's going to be exciting to watch this upcoming Saturday. So without further ado, let's get to the Week 15 NFL predictions. As almost always, the week begins with Thursday Night Football, and this week it features Kansas City and the LA Chargers. The Chargers won this matchup earlier in the regular season. Kansas City, they had bad mistakes on defense towards the end of that game. Patrick Mahomes had 3 turnovers in that game. But Kansas City has been a lot better since that Week 3 matchup, especially on defense, as that was one of their question marks throughout the year, especially when they were struggling. But the defense just keeps getting better and better each week. However, this Chargers offense is the best offense the Chiefs have faced off against during this hot streak that they have. But I think it's going to be a much different story this time around. I just think that the Chiefs defense, they have the hot hand. And this, I think, actually will go to a shootout. I expect there to be a score in the high 30s, but I'm going to take Kansas City to get the win here. Moving on to Game 1 on Saturday, Las Vegas and Cleveland. Now, Cleveland is coming off of a win against the Ravens, where Lamar Jackson left the game in the second quarter. While the Raiders, there has been those times where the Raiders, they have fallen apart in the second half of the year. So when I look at this matchup, the Raiders, they just got embarrassed last week to Kansas City after they decided to have a team meeting on the Kansas City logo, which really was not a smart move at all. And this does remind me of what happened last time they faced off against Kansas City. They come into this game as a 6-point underdog, just like they did against the Cowboys on Thanksgiving, after getting embarrassed by Kansas City the week prior to that. And then they bounced back and they got a huge win. And I think this is going to be the same story. I think the Raiders, not only do they cover that 6-point spread, but they get the win outright. Cleveland, I just don't know what to think of them, because one week they can play phenomenal, and the next week they're flat, then they can play phenomenal again, then they can play flat again, but their defense does well. So I'm going to pick Las Vegas. Game number 2 on Saturday, New England and Indianapolis. Now, both of these teams are coming off of a bye. So these teams are well rested, especially Colts running back Jonathan Taylor. All season long, it has appeared to me that the Patriots have been carried by their defense. And I have seen so many people talk about how the Patriots, they seem to be the favorites in the AFC. I don't think that's the case, because when we look at the Patriots, their 2 best wins of the year are against the Chargers and the Bills. And in both of those games, the Patriots offense could only muster up 1 offensive touchdown in each of those games. I get they played well against Dallas, but they lost that game. I get that they dominated against the Browns, but the Browns, they are inconsistent. They're not as good as they were last year. And let's also not forget that the Colts, they have a pretty strong defense. It's not as dominant as the Patriots defense has been throughout the year, but it's still a good defense. I think this defense is good enough to win this game, as I think that this is going to be a lower scoring game. I expect the Colts to really dictate the pace of this game with Jonathan Taylor, as he is the Colts' secret weapon at this point. Just hand him the rock, let him bleed the clock out, and the Colts will get the win. So I like Indianapolis in this game. Moving on to the Sunday games now. Carolina and Buffalo. For Carolina, they had a loss last week to Atlanta, and Cam Newton ended up getting benched in this game. And it's unknown at this point, at least I didn't read anything or hear anything from anybody on what the QB situation is for Carolina moving forward. While the Bills, they had a heartbreaking loss in overtime to Tampa Bay last week. And Josh Allen is a little bit banged up, and it's unknown about his status for this game. But I would lean towards Josh Allen playing. But if Josh Allen doesn't play, I think the Panthers, they have a really good shot to win. So if Josh Allen can't play in this game, we could be looking at a quarterback battle between P.J. Walker and Mitch Trubisky. And the reason why I said a good shot to win, well, Mitch Trubisky has been a starter in the NFL before. In fact, maybe he wasn't all that half bad as a starter. He got the Bears to the playoffs under Matt Nagy. And I think that really shows something. So whether Josh Allen plays or not, I like the Bills to win this game. Because with Josh Allen in this game, this Bills offense, it's the strongest offense the Panthers have faced off against in a while. So I'm going with Buffalo in this one, whether Josh Allen plays or not. But if I had to guess, Josh Allen is going to play this week. Moving on to Arizona and Detroit, and this is an easy one for me. It's unknown what the Lions are up to at running back right now. It appeared that Jamar Jefferson was going to get the start, get the majority of the work, but he didn't touch the ball once in that game. And it was Craig Reynolds that led the Lions in rushing yards. But DeAndre Swift expected to be back this week. Jamal Williams expected to be back this week. TJ Hawkinson expected to be back this week for the Lions. And for the Cardinals, Kyler Murray is Kyler Murray. Despite having a few mistakes in that Monday night loss to the Rams, the Cardinals, they're looking like still a contender for the NFC. Maybe not the contender at this point, but one of them. And I'm going with Arizona to bounce back and absolutely dominate Detroit. However, the Lions, they have played a couple of opponents close this season, and they've given some teams some close encounters this season. And they always say any given Sunday, but I'm going with Arizona. Moving on to the New York Jets and Miami. And Miami's defense, they have been doing well these last few games. We're starting to see that Dolphins defense kind of live up to what they were expected. One of the better defenses in the NFL. They are coming off of a bye, and they face off against the Jets. And the Jets, well, they are the Jets. So I'm going to pick Miami to win this one. This does feel like a simple pick, but sometimes it just isn't so simple. But you know me, I rarely ever pick the Jets. In fact, I don't know if I have ever picked the Jets, or at least it's been a long time, but I will pick Miami. Moving on to the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Football Giants. And the Cowboys, they're coming off of a big win against Washington. They increased their lead in the NFC East, while the Giants, who are they going to roll with at quarterback? Daniel Jones, I'd say that he's doubtful in this one. Are they going to roll with Mike Glennon, or are they going to go to Jake Fromm, their third string quarterback? Either way, this just feels like a Dallas win. CeeDee Lamb has been doing well this season all year long. Amari Cooper has been as well. And I expect Dak to have at least 4 touchdown passes in this game. So I'm going with the Cowboys easily over the Giants, because who knows who their quarterback's going to be, whether if it's Daniel Jones or Mike Glennon or even Jake Fromm. So I expect Trayvon Diggs maybe have another interception or two. Cowboys all day in this one. Next, we have the Washington football team and the Eagles, and both of these teams are banged up right now. Jalen Hurts and Miles Sanders are banged up heading into last week's bye. Last week, Terry McLaurin exited the game with a concussion, so he is in concussion protocol, so we'll have to wait and see if he plays this week. And Taylor Heinicke got banged up a couple of times in the game last week against the Cowboys, and Kyle Allen had to come in for a little bit. So it's unknown if we're going to see Taylor Heinicke or Kyle Allen as the starting QB. And how healthy is Jalen Hurts in this matchup? How healthy is Miles Sanders? But either way, I expect the Eagles to run the ball a lot, because earlier in the season it was a huge mystery on why Nick Sirianni wasn't running the football. And what we saw happen when the Eagles started running the football is they were winning games. So the main recipe for the Eagles at this point is to run the football, and you have about maybe a 90% chance of winning just automatically. So I'm going to go with the Eagles. And I said a few weeks ago, I think the Eagles, they might go on a hot streak to end the year. Yes, they had a heartbreaking loss to the Giants a couple weeks ago, but I don't think that's going to stop the Eagles from getting on a hot streak to end the year. And I could possibly see it, depending on if the Cowboys, if they kind of struggle a bit in these last couple of weeks, maybe we could see a showdown between the Cowboys and Eagles for the NFC East. You never know. But I will go with Philadelphia in this game. Next, we have Tennessee and Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh, they are the more rested team in this matchup. The Titans are coming off of a win against the Jaguars last week. But Ryan Tannehill has been struggling since Derrick Henry went out for the season. There is a slight chance that he could come back in week 17. But the Titans' offense just has looked abysmal these last few weeks. It started off well with the Titans by getting a win over the Rams, and then another one over the Saints. But since then, the Titans have just been seeming to struggle a bit. And with the Steelers, with their heartbreaking loss on Thursday Night Football last week, I think with what we saw at the end of that game, I think is momentum moving forward. I think that could be some confidence moving forward to the end of the year. And this is Ben Roethlisberger's last year with the Steelers, maybe even in the NFL. So I imagine Big Ben would want to go out strong this season and see what the future holds for him. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers get this win. Hopefully they can get some pieces among their defense a little healthier, a little stronger. But I like the Steelers. Moving on to Houston and Jacksonville in a game where I have to pick someone. I really don't want to pick anybody, but for the sake of picking all the games, I will just pick someone. And I'm just going to go with the team that I at least feel like maybe might have some competence, or at least some idea of what's going on, or even team chemistry at this point, and that's Houston. I mean, we have David Culley and Urban Meyer, maybe 2 of the bottom 3 coaches in the NFL, if not the 2 bottom coaches in the NFL. And I have no idea what Urban Meyer is doing with Jacksonville, because right now, the Jaguars, they're right where they were in week 1. We're all questioning why James Robinson isn't getting touches. Why isn't James Robinson on the field more? I mean, even Trevor Lawrence even voiced that to Urban Meyer on why he's not out there. I honestly would not be surprised if Urban Meyer got fired at the end of the year. I'm actually surprised when we saw all those college jobs open up, like Oklahoma and LSU, USC. I'm surprised that we didn't just see Urban Meyer say he had a health issue and has to retire. I really thought that was going to happen. Even Notre Dame, his dream job. But I'm going with Houston because, at least surprisingly, Houston seems to have at least some more competence than someone else. So I'm going with Houston. Next, we have Cincinnati and Denver. The Bengals, a heartbreaking loss last week in overtime to San Francisco. In a game where Cincinnati, they probably could have won. But one of Jamar Chase's touchdowns got overturned. While the Broncos, they picked up a dominant win against Detroit. Javonte Williams again with another big game. And I'm wondering, as well as everyone else, how will the carries get towards the end of the year between Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams? Right now, Melvin Gordon could be a bit banged up. He's had a hip injury in the last couple of weeks. I believe he has a thumb injury right now, but he's going to play in that game. At least if I had to guess. But I also thought Elijah Mitchell would play a couple weeks ago when he had a broken finger, but he did not play. But even if Melvin Gordon does miss time, Javonte Williams will, without a doubt, step it up, as it has been looking like Javonte Williams' season these last 3 weeks. But I think this might turn to Joe Burrow's season pretty soon, because despite the loss last week, the Bengals, they are still in the AFC North. If the Bengals win out, they will win the AFC North. So I am going to go with Cincinnati to win this game. I know that Denver's defense, one of the more underrated defenses in the league, they held their own against Kansas City a couple weeks ago. But I think there's just something about this Bengals team that's reminding me of Kirk Cousins at Washington. One week, they look great. They look like a dominant team. The next week, they look terrible. Then they look good against the 49ers, but they lose. So we'll see what Bengals team shows up this week. But I'm going with the Bengals team that wins. Moving on to Atlanta and San Francisco. And believe it or not, this is one of the biggest games of the week. And this isn't something that I expected to say towards the beginning of the year. The NFC playoff race is really tight right now. How tight is it? Well, both playoff races are really tight, but for the NFC playoff race, right now, the 49ers, they sit as the 6th seed in the NFC. The Falcons, they find themselves in the hunt at 10th in the NFC. And if the Falcons, if they got the win, moved to 7-7, the 49ers dropped to 7-7, the Falcons have the head-to-head tiebreaker over them to move up a spot. Someone between Washington and Philadelphia is going to lose ahead of them, and they'll fall to 6-8. And if the Vikings, if they lose to the Bears Monday night, then they'd fall to 6-8. So the Falcons, they can make up some serious ground in this NFC playoff race with just one win. And this isn't something that I expected, especially after the bad start the Falcons had this season. But if they can win this game, don't be surprised if Calvin Ridley comes back for the final few games of this regular season, because then at that point, they are potentially making a playoff run. But I do think San Francisco gets the win, however, because they've been playing like a much better football team these last couple weeks, especially George Kittle. absolutely dominant. A total of 27 targets in the last 2 games for George Kittle. So he's been a factor ever since he came back off the IR. Whether if it's in the red zone or on third down or blocking for Elijah Mitchell or Jeff Wilson or whoever the 49ers running back is, George Kittle has been effective. And I think he has been proven. He's been proving in these last couple of weeks. He has been proving that he's the best tight end in the NFL. So I'm going with San Francisco to get this win, but I would not be surprised the Falcons, they pulled off this upset. Remember last time the Falcons went to the 49ers home stadium. And it was when the 49ers, they went on that Super Bowl run. And ultimately the Falcons, they pulled off a last-second upset, and I wouldn't be surprised if that happened again, but I just can't see with the way the 49ers have been playing. So I'm going with San Francisco. Moving on to the Seahawks and the Rams, and both of these teams, they are looking like they are getting things back together. Both these teams are on a winning streak. They've won their last couple of games. The Rams, they went on a 3-game losing streak, but they have won their last 2. And I think Monday night against the Cardinals, I think that was a confidence win with what they were down. They were down Jalen Ramsey. They were down Tyler Higbee. They were short-staffed going into this game, and they came out with the win. Aaron Donald, a dominant performance, 3 sacks on the night. While Seattle, they are on a 2-game winning streak, and they've had a couple big wins in these last couple weeks. But I think it's too little too late. I just think this Rams offense, I think it's now clicking, as they were struggling for a couple weeks, but they are getting back on it. Matthew Stafford has thrown 3 touchdown passes in each of his last 3 games, and I think he continues that streak. I think the Rams, they win big in this one. Green Bay and Baltimore, and I am going to go with Green Bay in this one for a couple reasons. One, it's unknown if Lamar Jackson is going to play in this game, as he has an ankle sprain that he suffered against Cleveland on Sunday, and he did not return to the game. Tyler Huntley finished it off for the Ravens. And even if Lamar Jackson does play in this game, how much is he really going to run? How effective will he really be? Even if Lamar plays, I don't know if he's going to be as effective as he usually is for this Ravens offense. Plus, the Packers are one of those teams that once the calendar hits December, they are on a whole nother level. And right now, the Packers control their own destiny. If they win out, they will be the 1 seed in the NFC playoffs. The playoffs in the NFC will go through Lambeau. And that is not what we want to hear if you're in the NFC, is knowing that you have to go through Lambeau to get to the Super Bowl. So I'm going to go with Green Bay for the simple fact of Aaron Rodgers is the healthy quarterback in this matchup. And a big confidence booster last week for him as well. Another dominant performance against the Bears. He definitely still owns them, and he always will own them for as long as he's in the NFL. Moving on to the Saints and the Bucks. Sunday Night Football, and for some reason the Saints, they have had the Bucks number in the regular season. That Saints defense, they seem to play the best against Tom Brady and the Buccaneers in the regular season. But Tom Brady got the last laugh last year in the divisional round. Despite Jameis Winston getting injured in that game that ended his season, Trevor Siemian finished the job for the Saints, and they got the win. That seemed to be a confidence booster moving forward, but there has been some injuries that have been taking place. I mean, Alvin Kamara has been banged up. Mark Ingram has been banged up. In the Thanksgiving Day game against the Bills, the Saints ended up with Tony Jones Jr. as a starting running back, even though Ty Montgomery got the majority of the work. So now the Saints, they have Taysom Hill at quarterback. And I want to talk about Taysom Hill for a second. Now, who is Taysom Hill? He has been proven to be Mr. Versatility in the NFL. He can be effective on special teams. He can be effective at quarterback. He can be effective as a tight end. He can do it all. He's basically Mr. Versatility. Now, Taysom Hill got a significant amount of work as a backup to Drew Brees throughout his career. And I do want to discuss more of what is Taysom Hill. Well, Taysom Hill, besides being Mr. Versatility in the NFL, someone who can do it all, at least we haven't seen him kick field goals or extra points yet, or I don't think we've seen him punt yet, or kick off. But he is mobile. Now, who else in the NFL is mobile? Let's talk about some mobile quarterbacks here. Lamar Jackson, for one, mobile quarterback. Kyler Murray, mobile quarterback. Josh Allen, mobile quarterback. And notice how I said Josh Allen last. Well, the Buccaneers, they seem to contain Josh Allen really well in the beginning of the game last week. But the later on the game went, the harder of a time they're able to contain Josh Allen. And I think this Bucs defense is going to have that same problem. So I'm going to pick the Saints to upset the Bucs on Sunday Night Football. I think Taysom Hill has a big game this week. I just don't like what I saw out of the Buccaneers defensively in that second half of the game last week. And I think this is going to be your upset of the week. Week 15 ends with the Vikings and the Bears on Monday Night Football. And the task is simple for each of these teams. For the Vikings, you're in the playoff race. And right now, Kirk Cousins is having a really good season. One of his better seasons, if not his best season in his career. While for the Bears, the objective is to just finish strong, kind of build some confidence in the next season. And finishing strong, maybe Matt Nagy stays for one more year. Maybe he gets one more year to see how Justin Fields is for an entire regular season. But I think the Bears, they need to let Justin Fields be more independent or make him more trustworthy, to trust him to make the right decisions. Because the Bears, they have nothing to lose at this point. All the Bears can do at this point in the year is to play spoiler at this point. And what better way to play spoiler against a division rival after being embarrassed against another division rival just last week? And the Bears pulling off an upset against the Vikings, it's not going to really end their season, but it's going to make their goal of getting the playoffs a lot harder. But I just got to go with the Vikings here because they're the more rested team in this matchup by playing last Thursday. And they're going to have a lot more extra rest than the Bears will. And it's unknown if Adam Thielen is going to return this week. But Justin Jefferson has been stepping up in Adam Thielen's absence. Dalvin Cook, a big performance last week against the Steelers. So I'm going to go with Minnesota. And that will do it for my Week 15 NFL picks. To go over my picks again, I have Kansas City, Las Vegas, Indianapolis, Buffalo, Arizona, Miami, Dallas, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Houston, Cincinnati, San Francisco, the Los Angeles Rams, Green Bay, New Orleans, and Minnesota winning this week. Comment your picks down below. Like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, have a good day.